What is up? Welcome into another episode of Talking Ball. Today we're going to break down Rookie of the Year odds, both sides of the ball, offensive Rookie of the Year, defensive Rookie of the Year, give a little takes on how these guys have played so far, who I see progressing, who I see taking those awards come end of the season. We got PVOs on tap, takes of the week from you guys. Instead of a rookie stock report this week, since we're focusing on Rookie of the Year, we're going to do a little draft stock report, talk about some guys rising up draft boards. You know, the way the economy is, I got to give you some nice stock tips. Going to give you some draft stock tips here. First round lock segment's back, and then we're going to go movie club. It's coming back today. I know we missed last week with Austin Gale on the podcast, but concussion. Going to give a full review of that. Give the movie club for 2 weeks from now movie, and then do a little would you rather at the end of the show. But Quinn, I got to start with this. I was a little late today. I pride myself on being on time. I'm not like Coughlin time guy, but I hate being late to things. I showed up. We're supposed to be here at 7:45. Show up more like 7:48 because I'm walking out my door this morning, coffee in hand. I take a sip of my coffee, and I get a chunk of milk in my mouth, and I just about threw up in my hallway. And I had to go back and make one.
Your milk or from the store?
It was I made it at home. And it was my milk out of my fridge, poured it, definitely not thinking a bit at all because I had just gotten this stuff. I looked at the date after I threw it away, went back in, had to make myself another cup because, as you know, the coffee machine here in the office can take up to like 15 minutes depending on what.
It doesn't even work.
It doesn't work right now.
Just a little behind the scenes at PFF. We have it's probably like a $5,000 coffee machine. Doesn't work.
And it's not. And you always run the risk of it will not let you make coffee if you have to clean it. And the clean process takes a half hour, and it cleans after like every 50 cups. So after every 50 cups, it's just like, if you don't want to go through the process of sitting there dealing with it for a half hour, you're not going to drink a coffee. So I was like, okay, I got to go back in and make one. So that's why I was late here. But dude, the feeling of chunky milk in your mouth,
can't say I've ever had that.
Unmistakable. And just the worst. Just, very unpleasant. So that's why I was late. Very unfortunate situation going down here. But let's get to the Rookie of the Year odds. Give you a little offensive Rookie of the Year breakdown here first. The favorites at the top, we have Drake London, Falcons wide receiver at plus 400. Chris Olave, Saints wide receiver, plus 400. Then we got a pretty big gap, which is interesting to me. We'll get to why in a second. But then you have Kenny Pickett at plus 900. Still a holdover. I don't know how he's still there. I mean, I get that they think he's going to start at some point. I think a lot of people think he's going to start at some point, the rate the Steelers' offense is going. But he was plus 900 before the season. You know, like he hasn't moved an inch despite not playing a single game so far. At some point, he's just going to be too far behind the eight ball, even if he comes in and balls out. And it's like he's going to come into Matt Canada's offense no matter what he comes into. So that one to me is still a sucker bet.
Does he really have to be that good, though, if he comes in and starts to win? Because it's a quarterback, like it's always a quarterback, right? Like I feel like if he just comes in and throws more touchdowns than interceptions, they're going to be like, "Yep, Kenny Pickett."
They get deference. They for sure, like going back to 2016 when Zeke Elliott put up, legit yards for running back as a rookie. Dak was impressive, but not in like the whole. He wasn't impressive as far as like he wasn't a top 10 quarterback as a rookie. Zeke was a top 10 running back as a rookie. They still gave it to Dak that season, so they get deference for sure. But to me, it's going to be so far and away. Like these receivers are going to put up 1,000 yards. There's going to be a few guys putting up 1,000 yards this season. At that point, I don't know how. Like Chris Olave is 7th in the league in receiving yards right now. I don't know how at that point you can, if he finishes anywhere close to that, you can give it to a quarterback who's, average. So Kenny Pickett's still kicking at plus 900. Garrett Wilson at plus 900. Romeo Doubs at plus 900. The Packers wide receiver, Dameon Pierce, Texans running back, still at plus 1,000. Despite a touch of a slow start. Breece Hall has definitely dipped, been one of the biggest fallers here on the list. He was plus 1,000 to start the year, all the way down to plus 1,400 now. And then Jahan Dotson also at plus 1,400. Everyone else above plus 1,500 on the season. At the top, though, I mean, it's hard to go anywhere other than the receivers at this point, right? Like Breece Hall hasn't even gotten 10 carries in a game yet. Like I don't foresee that changing necessarily with Zach Wilson. Now Dameon Pierce he's gotten the opportunity. 35 carries the past couple weeks, has looked impressive on them despite a couple fumbles this past week against Chicago. But I don't know how with that offensive line he really overcomes it in a meaningful way. Like he's still kind of behind the eight ball from a production standpoint to get that. So to me, it's going to be one of these wide receivers. And kind of the one where if I had to put my money somewhere, it would be Chris Olave at this point, just because the opportunity. You just skill-wise, I've been impressed with all these. Like they all bring a different skill set to the table, and they all look NFL ready. They all look ready to produce. I don't foresee a backslide from any of these guys. It's not like, I don't want to hate on Treylon Burks too much, but like through a couple weeks, Treylon Burks had produced a little, but it was all crossing routes. It was all kind of scheme targets still in that offense. That's not been the case with London, Wilson, and especially Olave. Those are not scheme targets that he's getting, 50 yards down the field consistently. Garrett Wilson, I think, is getting baked in that they just don't know what it's going to look like once Zach Wilson comes back, right? He has the same amount of receiving yards and more catches than Drake London. Is in an offense that's going to pass a lot more than Atlanta's is. And I think that's kind of like the elephant in the room with Drake London is he's been on the field for 78 passing snaps through 3 games. Falcons are a run-heavy team. Chris Olave's been on the field for 112, Garrett Wilson 108. Like he's getting a lot more opportunity. Jahan Dotson 141. Those guys are getting way more opportunities to produce as receivers than Drake London is, even if Drake London's like the only one among that bunch that's like kind of like the undisputed number one in his team right now. So to me, though, I still go back to Olave because of this. You got Jameis Winston heaving the ball. He's back to old Jameis. He doesn't have Sean Payton there giving him check down screens 10 times a game. And so he's, back to his Jameis ways. And you got 2 slow wide receivers there across from Olave. You got Michael Thomas, who doesn't have a deep catch all season, despite being back. And Jarvis Landry, who's, was infamously a 4.7 guy coming out of LSU. And yeah, he has a couple deep catches there, but it's the deep targets in that offense are going to Chris Olave. And you can't reel in Jameis and say, stop throwing the ball so wildly down the football field. 10 deep targets a rate for Chris Olave. 4 deep receptions. 10 deep targets, I believe, leads the NFL at the moment. He has the second highest average depth of target behind only Devontae Parker at 19.3 yards. So he's going to get the opportunities to produce and get chunk plays. And yeah, he doesn't have a touchdown yet, but that's where I'd put my money at the moment. And now some of that hinged on Jameis' health. He's obviously been banged up throughout the season. And obviously some of that hinges on Zach Wilson. If he explodes coming back in year 2, Garrett Wilson might be your best bet. But I'm thinking Olave.
What if Andy Dalton explodes? He's the Saints' backup. I think Jameis missed practice yesterday too.
That'd be a fireball. That would be like this. It would be like this red rhino that I have here, the smelling salt that murdered me prior to the show. I was literally, my nose is still running from taking that. That was not a smart decision on my part. But yeah, I do think these receivers have exceeded my expectations, I'll say. I thought we'd see some slow starts, some kind of, besides Olave. I thought Olave was NFL ready. So when he wasn't, week 1 hitting the ground, I was like, oh, I expected him to be the guy to produce year 1. We've seen it the past couple weeks. 237 yards past 2 weeks. I think he's ready to rip. All right, 227 yards, excuse me. On to the defensive side of the football, though. The odds as it stands right now. Aiden Hutchinson, Detroit Lions, number 2 overall pick, plus 250. Runaway favorite. Devin Lloyd, plus 500. George Karlaftis, plus 900. Trayvon Walker, plus 1,100. Kayvon Thibodeau, plus 1,400. I don't know how that's still the case. Ahmad Gardner, plus 1,400 too. To me, from a performance on the field football perspective, there are 2 guys that stick out like sore thumbs in this group. It's Devin Lloyd and Sauce Gardner. They have been legitimately, we just talked about like the Dak versus Zeke Elliott thing. Like they've been top 10 to 20 players to their respective position. They have been guys who, in the whole of the NFL, are respected or should be respected to that level at their respective positions. Now, Trayvon Walker's been very solid, very good run defender out the gate. does a lot for them in terms of their scheme and the stunts that they run and being able to close and get home quickly and, attack as the, initial man on a stunt with some ferocity and free guys up. Like, he's a godsend for that defensive scheme. But I still don't see him producing at a high level. Aiden Hutchinson kind of lucked into 3 sacks, but he has not been that level of consistency as a pass rusher. I think he's flashed more than a number of guys on this list, probably more than everyone but Karlaftis. But I don't foresee him being, 3 sacks in 3 games. He's not keeping that up. They would floor him if he keeps it up. So to me, I'm going to bank on the talent for Rookie of the Year and not the, I would say, lucky statistical production at this point for Hutchinson. They're just fluky. That's not just going to be repeatable. So to me, Lloyd's the pick at plus 500. Lloyd or Sauce. Now, Sauce, the trouble with Sauce is I'm not sure how many, 1, targets he's going to get because of his play style, and 2, picks. It's still a stat-driven award. So 3 pass breakups, but not a pick yet for Sauce Gardner. He's not the kind of corner that's going to be racking up picks. He's not Trayvon Diggs taking those chances. He's just very sound. And his best reps, you don't throw the football this way. So that's not going to show up on a stat sheet, and it'll show up on a stat sheet at PFF, but it's not going to show up on a stat sheet for voters. So I see why he's plus 1,400 at this point. To me, if you're going anywhere other than Devin Lloyd, I don't think any of these guys. I would even go, if I got going Devin Lloyd, I'd go more long shot like Quay Walker, who's above plus 1,500 at the moment. So that's how I'd handicap to you, really. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously I believe in the talent, and the name is there, the brand name. He's obviously, we helped that. Austin Gale, former PFF employee, did his best to make him a household name with the podcast, but I think I still lean Devin Lloyd because the Jags are going to get talked about a lot this year with their emergence. That's how I see Drew. Okay. All right, let's get to PVOs. Positive vibes only. We had a couple takes this week about the quarterback position that we just had to talk about. These are too good not to talk about, in fact. First one comes from Charles James II. If you'll recall him, he was a star of Hard Knocks way back when he was with the Texans. It was a corner, and they gave him a run in the preseason. I don't know if you remember that one, but that was way back when. But he came with this after Monday Night Football, or it was during Monday Night Football. He said, Daniel Jones is just as good as Josh Allen. He just don't have an offensive line. Good night. And he just left on that. Mike dropped it. Just as good. Man, something about the quarterback position just makes people lose their minds. I don't even know where to start with this one. There's
I do feel like I have seen people comp Daniel Jones to Josh Allen. I'm not saying it's right, but I think people are just big white guy that can run a little bit.
Yeah.
Josh Allen.
That's so okay. One,
maybe that's where he was going.
Josh Allen's still a better runner. He's Daniel Jones good, athletic. He had he had the fastest speed of any quarterback last year on that play he fell, or was that 2 years ago? He is mobile, but he also has nowhere near the sort of reactive athleticism, shall we say, of a Josh Allen. That is, hey, the pocket's collapsing. Let me get out of it in a semi-athletic way. When he's in space, he can move athletically, but he's lost trying to escape tight pockets. And they just he's not the guy to make guys miss the way Allen does. Allen's a terror in the open field. You just don't want to see that 240-pounder bearing down on you. I don't think people feel similarly about Daniel Jones. And then an arm strength perspective, we can just go down the line if we want to, but that's the other one where it's they're not close. They're not close. Daniel Jones' arm is not close to Josh Allen's arm. Any comparison you want to make about is not close. So, Jesus. Here, let's just get to the next take because it gets to the same realm. This one comes from John Middlecoff, who's, I believe he does a podcast now. He used to do radio, I think, in the Bay Area. Was a former NFL scout for the Eagles, in fact. And I don't know if he's trolling with this take because, former Eagle scout talking about the Cowboys, but he says this. Dak has obviously accomplished way more. But if you argue there's a talent gap between the two players, meaning him and Cooper Rush, you might want to put down the sauce. Like, okay. The first thing, not even the take itself, but he's going so far to say is that if you don't agree with this incredibly hot take, you're the one that's crazy. You're the one who needs to put down the sauce if you don't see that Cooper Rush is the exact same talent level as Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, the 240-pound starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, who's been a dual threat through his entire career, can actually run. Cooper Rush ran a 4.93 coming out of Central Michigan. Now, maybe arm strength perspective, sure. But there's just so much more to like the quarterback than so much more to a talent at the quarterback position than just like, can they throw hard? That one, again, I don't even know where to start with these. I don't feel like breaking it down point by point, but to call us crazy for not agreeing with that just makes him even more crazier.
It's a good way to argue, though, right? Like it's
It's gaslighting.
if you say anything with enough conviction and you make other people just believe it.
Yeah,
You know,
Convince them they're crazy.
you can tell them to do anything.
Yeah. If you don't think that if my coach didn't hate me back in high school, I would have been in the league, you're put down the sauce. If you don't think that, you don't know ball. All right, let's get to the takes of the week. We had one submission make the cut this week, and I like this submission a lot because I overlooked this. Let's get you got it queued up?
Yep, let's hit it.
Hey, Mike, I know you guys already talked about the OSU versus Alabama wide receiver room debate, but I think I'd raise the argument that the USC 2019 wide receiver core is better than both of them. You had Michael Pittman Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, even Tyler Vaughn was a good college wide receiver. Throw in Velus Jones if you want as well. I think that group might have more success in the NFL and was arguably a better college group.
I like that take. Now, I will say it's like they've turned out well. At the time, it wasn't like Drake London was a true freshman. He was not considered in that realm of player. And I guess I did some of that with Jackson Smith and Jigba on OSU for 2020. But, for like Alabama 2019, those guys were all like there. I didn't throw in LSU's 2019 in that discussion, which I think they deserve to, which like how much wide receiver talent was there back in 2019? And it was also concentrated. But yeah, Drake London, 567 yards, a true freshman. Amon-Ra St. Brown was great that year. As a sophomore, I was a big fan of him. But Tyler Vaughn's like still outsnapped some of those guys, which maybe speaks to why USC wasn't getting the job done with Clay Helton. But I like the take. I like the call out. I'll go 82.0 on that take because it's true. They belong in that discussion. They firmly do, especially with what they've done in the NFL rate. Drake London looks on pace to be, a true number one type of wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the same thing. Michael Pittman, the same thing. 3 number one wide receivers from one school in 1 year. That's putting you in the discussion. Now, would I take any of those guys over Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson in 2019 LSU? No, I don't think so. Would I take any of those guys over Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith? Well, definitely not Jalen Waddle. Devontae Smith's kind of a conversation, but probably not. Would I take them over Olave Wilson? We're debating now. That's close. We're getting close now. So, yeah, I like the take. I like the take.
It was from Jack Smith, by the way.
Jack Smith. Shout out.
Jack Smith.
Make sure to get those takes in. Speak pipe in the link. We've had some people come with takes on ask for mailbag questions in the Speak Pipe link. I will just I will answer those still on the Monday mailbags. Shout out, make sure you get your mailbags in for Monday. I will answer those still, but just I'm going to write them out and not have those come in audio form. All right, let's get to the little draft stock report because we don't talk draft enough on the show. And I'm the lead draft analyst here. So I want to talk some draft. I want to talk some guys who I've seen of late that have impressed me, that who are maybe considered like prospects, but I think are on the rise this upcoming season and could be, I don't want to say making their way in the first round conversation, but just guys you need to know at this point in the process. And the first one is start with the quarterback position. Start on offense here. I got 3 guys on offense, 3 guys on defense. First one's Hendon Hooker, Tennessee quarterback. We'll get to some of the cons here later. But, man, I could not have been more impressed with this game against Florida this past weekend. Went back then and watched, the first 3 games. And it's Ball State, it's Akron, Pittsburgh, which he was tremendous against Pittsburgh too. It's like, it's not, maybe not the best competition in the world, but the Florida game, he's so, a lot of guys can run when given a runway. I kind of said that about, Desmond Ridder coming out. I was like, he can run in the open field. Kind of what I just said about Daniel Jones. He can run the open field, but when things are clogged, things are kind of scummy, things are, pockets collapsing, or you're actually utilizing him as a runner and he has to evade maybe a couple guys, you don't want him doing that. I think Hendon Hooker can. I think he's dynamic as hell. 786 rushing yards last year in his first year at Tennessee. 227 already on the season. Went for 126 against Florida. He's a real threat to break the pocket, do whatever, actually be an add-on in the run game. And I like his release. Got a real tight release. I think he's improved. You buy into the improvement as a passer. His 4 years as a starter. So he started off at Virginia Tech. 2 years started there. 2 years Tennessee. 74.6 grades first year as starter. 74.8 second year. 84.4 first year here at Tennessee. 90.5 now this past year. Every single year you've seen improvement from him, and he's kind of just dialed. Not 8 touchdowns, 0 picks. 71.7 completion percentage. Now, to the cons. He will be 25 years old when he's drafted. Him and Jaron Hall are going to be interesting case studies because they'll both be the BYU quarterback, Jaron Hall. They'll both be 25 years old when they're drafted, which, if they're drafted, I think they'll both get drafted. But 25 years old quarterback position, it's like you better look fucking good. You better do the little things well because that's Lamar Jackson. His age, you're a seasoned vet in the NFL sometimes at 24 years old, 25 years old. You better, people get given up on in the NFL at that age. So will be interesting to see where he lands. I don't think at that age you can really sneak yourself into the first round. And with the other knock on him being this offense is a joke. Josh Heupel's offense brought over from UCF. The go ball, line your wide receivers up as far out as possible so that the DBs out there can't add on the run game. That you kind of have to choose. Am I going to play those guys in the pass, or am I going to play them numbers in the box in the run game? And it's just pick a side of the field that you think based on the coverage, and it's a one-man or 1 or 2 man route combination. So it's not NFL stuff a lot of the times. And so 25 years old, not doing NFL stuff, you're like, we'll see. So I very curious to see where Hendon Hooker does end up from a draft perspective. He's going to be an interesting eval. Next guy that I want to talk about on the offense side of the ball, Rashee Rice, SMU wide receiver. I know he was Dane Brugler's number 1 senior wide receiver heading into this year. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who will be on next week's episode. He's exceeded even that expectation, in my opinion. I was a fan of size, yak ability at 6'3", 206. I think he's been even more dynamic this year. Already has 563 yards through 4 weeks, 34 catches, 4 touchdowns, and he's 6'3", 206. He may not be a take the top off, long speed kind of guy, but I love his possession traits. 6 out of 11 in contested catches so far this season. He's just a volume type of wide receiver. Any route on the tree, I think he can run, and the flexibility, the yards after contact, I'm a fan. Maybe not. This wide receiver class to me is kind of weak, honestly. I've said that before. A lot of people have Jackson Smith and Jigba as number 1, and I said I don't think he's touching Olave or Garrett Wilson as prospects yet, and he's obviously been hurt to start the year. But Rashee Rice probably day 2 wide receiver at this point. I'd put him in day 2. Next guy on this list, and I am now currently kicking myself because I told when I was preparing this guy, whose name I won't say just yet, I said I was going to look up the pronunciation of his name prior to the show. I told you guys I was running late. I did not look up the pronunciation of this guy prior to the show. So bear with me. Olu Muyiwa Fashanu. And I just butchered that. I know. Apologies to him. Penn State left tackle.
Should we just call him like Big O?
Big O.
Or something?
Big O for show. God, that sounded so white. But his last name's Fashanu. I don't know why I just did that. Kill me. All right. But he's left tackle for Penn State. Took over for Rasheed Walker. 7th round pick for the Green Bay Packers. He has looked tremendous in pass protection for not having, 85 snaps prior to this year, cleanup duty, whatever, for not being a starter prior to this year as a redshirt now sophomore, I believe. He's looked great in pass pro. Hasn't allowed a sack, hasn't allowed a hit, 5 pressures on 156 pass blocking snaps. And going back and watching those 5 pressures, none of them are ugly, which is always a good sign for an offensive tackle. But 6'6", 320, not super nimble, not the most athletically gifted guy, but he's very balanced. I'll say this 20 times now until the draft. Love balance for offensive linemen. It's huge at the position because you're in contact with a defender, a guy trying to take you off balance consistently. When you're engaged with the defensive lineman, they are trying to get you to fall flat in your face. And so I like guys that don't. Think about how many times you see the elite offensive lineman waving at air, fall into the ground. Doesn't happen. So I love Big O's balance. And he's been one of the biggest riders in the offensive line class. Seen him highlighted elsewhere. I wouldn't put him in. There's not a lot of tackles I'd put in the first round conversation right now, but probably going to end up somewhere. We're going to do a draft board update in a couple weeks here at the midseason mark, about 6 weeks in, and he will be somewhere. He'll be in the top 100, probably somewhere in the top 75 at this point. So big fan of what I've seen from him on tape. All right, let's flip over to the defense side of the ball, where first guy I want to highlight is Kobe Turner, defensive tackle from Wake Forest, of all places. And you don't know anything about Kobe Turner? He transferred from James Madison, 4 years of James Madison, transfers to Wake Forest, and now he is the highest graded defensive tackle in all of college football this season. 6'3", 290, every single game he has brought it. Graded out, we graded Richmond, and he graded out elite for the last 3 seasons for Richmond before coming over, which, you always worry, competition level, whatever, but this guy's 6'3", 290, and he is violent, 6'3", 290. Undersized, probably going to be like a 3-tech only type of guy. I don't know if he's super athletic enough to really sell me on, first round defensive tackle at 290. But, man, if I can get this guy somewhere late day 2, I'll be really happy with this pick because he is tone setter at that, despite not being, tone setter size. I'm a big fan of his game. I'm not sure necessarily how old he is because, again, this is his 5th year. So could be on the older side for a prospect, but definitely caught my eye here early on out the gate. 11 pressures already, 13 stops, 12 run stops. Hasn't missed a tackle yet. Always love DTs that don't miss tackles. Again, speaks to balance, which I love balance. All right, next guy up, linebacker. We're going one to each level, both sides of the ball. Drew Sanders, Arkansas linebacker. I actually just saw, so he's spent 2 years at Alabama, transfers to Arkansas. Now he's one of the tone setters for that great Arkansas defense. 6'5", 232. He's kind of that body type that everyone wants at linebacker. Everyone, the Quay Walker body type, the Tremaine Edmonds body type, the kind of body type that gets overdrafted just because it doesn't show up what that guy does on the stat sheet. The difference between the windows that a guy like Drew Sanders, like, again, Quay Walker, Tremaine Edmonds, guys who are 6'5" with damn near 7-foot wingspans. Those guys shut down passing lanes that just doesn't show up in the stat sheet. They're in the middle of a defense. Quarterback's looking at a crosser coming behind them, and they're going to hesitate more so than if Malcolm Rodriguez is in that window. Malcolm Rodriguez can be playing that ball perfectly, running underneath it. They might throw that ball as opposed to Drew Sanders being there just with his hands up in the window just because of how much ground that guy can cover. So Sanders been impressed with him. Obviously, he didn't play much at Alabama, only 284 snaps back in 2020 at Alabama, and mostly as like an edge rusher at his size. And he's now an off-ball linebacker, and I think that's something that he's going to obviously need to continue to improve his instincts at, but you see the natural talent when he's just in space, his ability to take on blocks. Already has, as a blitzer, has 18 pressures on 64 blitzing snaps, 6 sacks. I mean, he is lightning rod coming downhill and has a great understanding of how to rush the passer. So maybe he does end up on the edge ultimately, but we'll need to gain some mass to do so. I did see that Mel Kiper had him as top 20 player on his board already. So definitely one of the biggest risers this draft season. Last guy I want to highlight here, secondary. I'm going to go to Illinois of all places, who did produce Nate Hobbs. So maybe they got a little track record starting here of corners. But Devon Witherspoon this guy's been awesome this year. 27 targets through 4 games. 9 catches allowed. 119 yards, already 7 pass breakups, leads the country, 1 pick, 6 foot, 180, long arms. The guy is physical as can be. Hasn't missed a tackle on 14 attempts this season. He is that like press outside physical corner that's just going to disrupt stuff before it even starts. And then I've been really impressed. 7 pass breakups. Really impressed with the way he attacks the football this year. He's challenging like footballs at the catch point like a wide receiver. Like he's going for it, even if he hasn't hauled in more than one. You just see the ability to see the ball correctly, which a lot of cornerbacks don't. That's why they play corner. As JT O'Sullivan says, if they catch, they'd be on the other side of the ball. But I think Devin Witherspoon has some real ball skills. Probably we'll need to see more from him, but he is a multi-year starter at this point. He's been playing ever since 2019, which you would hope to see at Illinois. But I think he could work his way into day 2. Probably still a day 3 guy at this point, but definitely made himself draftable here as a senior. All right, those are your stock report. Buy stock in those guys at this point because they're going up. Continue with the draft theme. Let's go to first-round locks, which it's kind of gotten tough. We've already locked in Jalen Carter, the Georgia defensive tackle, Will Anderson, the Alabama edge, and Peter Skoronski, the Northwestern offensive tackle. Those are 3. Honestly, in my head, I was going through, and there are probably only 3 others that I would really put pen in and not be worried about looking dumb 8 months from now. 3 others at this point. 3 others after the guy I'm going to say. So 4 others. But the next guy on this list is C.J. Stroud, Ohio State quarterback. There's a toss-up between him and Bryce Young, who was going to lock in first. But I think Stroud's outplayed him this year. I think Stroud's been more consistent than Bryce Young has been this year. And then takes more of like the high-end NFL boxes that you want to see. 6'3", 215. Bryce Young's not even, barely scraping 6 foot, not even 200 pounds. So you're going to see more. You're just going to see evaluators that I think he's probably the favorite right now. I think betting-wise, he is the favorite to go number 1 overall. So,
do you think Justin Fields, just not being good is going to hurt him at all? Because, at this point, it looks like there, really and truly might be something to the whole, Ohio State QBs just can't play. Because, Justin Fields was, I don't want to say as can't miss as they come, but, we were very high on him.
No, he was. So
you know what I mean?
He was third on the board.
Do you think that bias will play? Obviously he'll still go in the first round, but do you think that bias will play into his evaluation at all?
So I've said before, Stroud plays the quarterback position so differently than Fields did. They're in the same offense. They're playing it differently. Stroud's time to throw for his career is over a half second shorter than Justin Fields. That's playing the quarterback position differently. I think Fields was physically more gifted, but everyone Fields, the book on Fields was he's going to need to develop. Coming from that offense, the way he played was going to need to change. I don't know if that's, I don't think that's the case for Stroud. He, again, operates so much better within structure than Fields ever did. He scrambled twice all year. 116 dropbacks. He has broken the pocket and scrambled twice. That's Justin Fields last year. Let me look it up real quick. But Justin Fields, I'm not sure there was a game where Justin Fields, that was the case for. Justin Fields 42 times in 2019, 33 times this last year, on only 281 dropbacks. So as a rate perspective, scrambles about 6 times more often than 5 or 6 times more frequently than CJ Stroud. So, yeah, Stroud's done enough, though. He'll go somewhere in the first round, especially with quarterback desperation. He'll go somewhere in the first round. All right, let's get to the movie club, though. We watched Concussion over the past few weeks, which I apologize for. It was a downer. It was not, they kind of like spun it at the end, obviously, but the start of it was pretty tough to watch. You know, the way they portrayed.
They jump right in, yeah.
Yeah. The way they portrayed Mike Webster, the former Steelers center, who, you know, obviously went through, had CTE, went through serious mental illness towards the end of his life. They didn't pull punches with that. But I will say, once Alec Baldwin showed up on screen, I audibly laughed just because of.
That was my first take.
I didn't know he was in the movie.
Yeah. A movie about like traumatic injuries and Alec Baldwin. To be fair, he's going to have to deal with that for the rest of his career, or like if he even has a career after that, you know what I mean? Every time, but like any movie you see Alec Baldwin in, you're gonna be like, oh shit, there he is, you know what I mean? But like it's even funnier when he's like, yeah,
brain injuries,
yes, head injuries.
The irony not lost, but that was tough for him. I will say, it also kind of cracked me up when there's like a montage of the doctor. Gosh, I'm blanking on whatever his name was. He flips on the TV, and they just have a montage of ESPN playing Jacked Up. And it made me nostalgic. I was like, damn, I kind of miss Jacked Up. Like,
do you think that you would be allowed to do that today? Like, do you think ESPN would be allowed to run that today? Well, do you think there'd be backlash?
I mean, there'd be backlash. Oh, yeah. That's why they stopped in the first place, right? Because there was backlash.
Was there? I really and truly don't remember
that's
that.
Why they got
That's how much I don't watch ESPN these days.
But I think someone could do it. You know, I think there's still a market for it, because like people know at this point. You know it's not good. But it's like people still watch car crashes. You know, people still watch NASCAR and see a car crash and is like, ooh, like that's jacked up, right? Everyone knows that it's bad. Everyone knows it's not good for the guy that got jacked up, but you still watch it and you're like, okay, that was kind of. I shouldn't even say this, but like every Sunday before the game started, like I don't tune into the pregame shows. Me and Austin would just sit on the couch and we would throw NFL's biggest hits on the TV on YouTube, and just be like, God damn, those are big hits. Just like you sit there and it gets kind of hyped to watch football.
You could put it on like HBO or something.
Yeah.
Where you got to like pay. That's like kind of one of my $1 billion ideas is like you let HBO do sports, and then you just put like for like college basketball, you just put Bob Knight in the booth and just not ESPN Bob Knight, just let him say whatever the fuck he wants. That would be good. That would be very entertaining. It might not be great. God. There'd be some bad shit that got said, but in that same light, you could throw Jacked Up on there and people would be like, yeah, I'll watch it.
Just like show football how it was in like the early 2000s. Like when they had Rush Limbaugh on ESPN, and they had that, remember, it was going around the other day, the TO intro to Monday Night Football, where he's in the locker room
Desperate Housewives. I think that was the first season of Desperate Housewives, and that was when ABC was like really trying to pimp it, like, hey, watch our new show.
If someone just took it back to that level of sports, where it was just very obviously degrading towards women and very like hyper masculine, but there, like if someone did it, there would be a market for it.
It was basically the plot of Any Given Sunday.
Yeah,
like kind of a little bit. Which that's another movie we should review. That's a good one.
Ooh, we should. I will drop the next one here in a second. I think it's gonna be it's one I haven't seen, but just wanted to say they also shoehorned a love story into this, which I hate when movies do that, right? Like
that's got to be for Hollywood,
I hate when they do that.
Because like the thing with these movies, and the same thing with like American Underdog, is like a lot of like my takeaways and like a lot of the reviews are just going to be more of like the cinema stuff, because you can't really argue with the plot, because like a lot of this shit happened.
Yes.
Right. Like if we reviewed Pearl Harbor, you can't be like, oh, I don't like how the Japanese sunk the USS Arizona. It's like, well, nobody did, but like that shit fucking happened. You know what I mean? Like that's a real event. Yeah. So like it's tough to poke holes in it, you know?
Yeah. We'll get off the based on true story movies here in a second, but it's just like, it reminded me of Top Gun Maverick. You seen Top Gun Maverick?
Great movie.
How there's just like a love story that didn't make sense to the movie. I the whole time I'm like, who even is this chick? Because I hadn't watched the first one in a while. I was like, was she in the first one?
I know the answer to that.
Okay.
So like in the first one, and we're just totally off the rails now because we're talking about a different movie, but in the first one, like when they like in the opening scene when he like helps the guy that freaks out, I forget his call sign, and he lands, and they go back in the admiral's office, and he's like chewing him out. He's like, you should have landed your plane, like you fuck around too much. And he says something about like, you were like banging the admiral's daughter, and Goose goes like, Penny Benjamin.
Oh,
that's Penny Benjamin. So she kind of fits in, but she wasn't in the first movie at all.
Oh,
yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, did not know that.
I'm a big Top Gun stan. Yeah, it's my favorite movie.
I mean, we can get off the rails here. This is Movie Club. This is for cinephiles only. So, next one, announcing the next movie, week 5, 2 weeks from now. You got 2 weeks to watch all the right moves. Speaking of Top Gun Maverick, the little Tom Cruise movie. There,
I have not seen this one either.
Not seen it. I'm excited to. It's been one that I've always wanted to see, because it's one that people bring up, like, you know, when you're debating actors, who's the best actor, who has the biggest like hit reel. Going through, I have like Tom Cruise, all the right moves. It's about football, and I've never seen it. So we're going to watch a movie about football with Tom Cruise and see if he can actually look like he's semi-capable of playing the game of football. All right. Last segment here before we do, actually I forgot to tease this off top, interview with Cris Collinsworth, owner of PFF, Sunday Night Football announcer, former Bengals wide receiver great. Got him ahead to talk a little bit about announcing. Got him on to talk a little bit about wide receivers in the NFL today. Got him on to talk a little about quarterbacks in the NFL today. Maybe a little bit of Bengals as well. So make sure to check that out at the end. But ending here with a little would you rather. So you want to break it off with yours first, because you're getting a little Thursday Night Football preview with yours.
Yep. So all of mine are going to be Thursday Night Football, forward facing. Both rocking the Bengals gear, white out. I think the Bengals are going to win.
It is a whiteout? I didn't realize that. I don't have any white.
It's the
Bengals.
white helmet game.
Yeah. But I didn't realize it was like.
We got a white shirt on underneath.
Oh, get this. I saw yesterday, I go to breakfast. I see Duke Tobin and some other Bengals people that I did not recognize. But they're talking about building a fence around the practice fields. You heard it here first. I thought I was going to hear some cool. Is it up?
Yeah, the bubble is up. I mean, I don't know if it's like move-in ready, but like the structure in the field is like, it's pretty damn close.
I thought I was going to get some like nice nuggets, because I was at the table like right next to them. Nice nuggets about the Bengals and whatever. No, they were just talked about the practice facilities and new gym equipment that they're buying. So it's like, God damn it. Maybe talk a little bit about prospects or something, but nope. But all right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, first one. So a lot of good matchups. You know, obviously the big one is people are going to be talking about like Burrow versus Tua, because like that was the debate in the draft for a while. But personally, I think the best matchup is going to be Trey Hendrickson versus Teron Armstead. So who
do I got?
Who do you got? Yeah,
Ooh.
who do you got? Who do you think wins that matchup?
That one's tough. Hendrickson's been on a fucking tear, man. I mean, he's looked good
for like 2 years now.
Well, but I'm saying,
this year. I
like,
believe, and I should have came prepared and looked this up, but I believe he's the highest graded edge defender in the NFL right now.
He tore George Fant a new one last week. I believe it was George Fant. Man, this one's tough. I will say, if like I had to choose one for my team, I'd probably go Hendrickson, because Armstead's just the least reliable tackle in terms of just health. Like, it seems every year it's like, and he's like Trent Williams levels of he's going to miss 4 games a year. But I think in this matchup, Teron Armstead, he's only allowed 4 pressures all season. Not a sack, not a hit. He's still there as a pass protector to where I think he's the kind of guy that's going to shut down Trey Hendrickson. Not shut down, but that Trey Hendrickson doesn't really want to see because he's a hell of an athlete. Like Teron Armstead is super athletic. So I'm going to go Teron Armstead. Hate to do it to you, but
that's a good answer.
Teron Armstead.
Also, third highest pass rushing grade. He's not the highest graded.
Third highest. All right.
I looked it up.
Here we go. I got a would you rather. I got the first threefold would you rather that we've done so far. But in their prime, at their peak, which running back would you want? Because these, to me, are the three most like physically imposing running backs in the NFL today. Prime Nick Chubb, prime Derrick Henry, or prime Jonathan Taylor?
To be honest with you, I think this is kind of easy. I think it's Derrick Henry.
Oh.
Like, in college, he won a Heisman.
Yeah.
Nobody could stop him. Teams, I don't know what the exact number is this year. And, I wouldn't even say it's prime Derrick Henry this year, but, teams just stack the box.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. He's still just running through them. I know, Chubb and Taylor are maybe probably a little shiftier, but I don't know, man. Derrick Henry's just been getting it done for so long, and every year people are like, "Is this gonna be the year the wheels fall off? Is this gonna be the year the wheels fall off?" And it just hasn't happened.
They don't fall.
Yeah, and again, teams know. This year too, the Titans, they fucking stink. Sorry, Titans fans, and people are stacking the box, and he's still just he still just keeps trucking. I don't know how he does it. But
his high-end plays are the best of all those guys, in my opinion, because it looks so cool, right? Because he is 6'3", 247 with long arms. And so,
the 90-yard touchdown run against the Jags is probably one of the best runs ever. Yeah, in football history.
Just seeing him accelerate, the way he gets up to speed at that size, it's different. It's impressive to watch. But I lean Nick Chubb, though. Nick Chubb has never had a season.
That was going to be my second one.
He's never had a season in his career. He's been in the NFL 5 years now. Never had a season where he's averaged less than 5 yards a carry. Not one. Every single year.
He's the best running back in the NFL right now.
Right now, I agree.
And he has been for the last probably 2-3 years.
And he has such an odd shuffle way of running that he, when he gets hit, it doesn't even break his strides. He will eat a leg, an attempted tackle easier than any running back in the league today. Guys bounce off him. And you see why. You see those lifting numbers. You see his 600-pound squat, and you're just like, this guy is an absolute animal. He also, anytime you bring up Nick Chubb, the high school pictures. If you've never seen the pictures of him in high school, search Nick Chubb high school track. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. He looks like a 30-year-old man racing against children back in high school. And I still say that he was better freshman year at Georgia than he even is right now. That freshman year at Georgia was special before he blew out his knee. Blew out his knee as freshman at Georgia after averaging 7.1 per carry. Had 1,549 yards as a true freshman in the SEC with 14 touchdowns. He was an animal. But alas, I lean Nick Chubb, but it's tight. Those guys are all – give some love to Jonathan Taylor. He's probably got the best speed of the bunch when he gets in the open field, but you're dealing with some prime physical freaks there.
Yeah, we glossed over Jonathan Taylor. He's just some fucking schmuck. He's awesome.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's almost it's going to sound dumb saying.
He's a freak in his own right.
Yeah.
His numbers, his testing numbers were off the fucking charts. It's just when you compare him to Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb, and you see because Derrick Henry's got the same sort of workout videos and stuff that Nick Chubb has, where you watch and you're just normal people, even elite athletes, can't do the shit that they're doing.
Yeah. I was going to say that Jonathan Taylor almost runs too track style-y. He runs too normal. He has too normal of a gait to really be elite like Henry and Chuck. Or not really be elite, but the guys who run weird in the NFL are the guys that are the hardest to tackle, hardest to read as route runners. It's just something about it that is why I lean Chubb and Henry. All right, what's your next one?
All right. So again, matchup based Thursday Night Football. Dolphins wide receivers. I know we debated it on the first episode. Bengals versus Dolphins wide receivers, but like Dolphins wide receivers are probably the best in the NFL right now. Bengals secondary, top 5 coverage unit per PFF.
Mm-hmm.
Who wins?
Don't do that.
Which unit would you rather?
I'll say
have
this
tonight. Who wins the matchup tonight?
I'll say this. I think the way the Bengals secondary is built, they are tailor-made to slow down this Dolphins offense more than anyone they face so far.
Yep.
Because of
that
how
was
they play.
my argument for my own question.
Now it's like they've been trouncing everyone. So slowing them down a little is like, they're still going to put up points. But I do think because of how they are so good at dictating matchups, the Dolphins offense, you have to have no liabilities. Or if you have a liability, be willing to protect them, which the Bengals do with Eli Apple. So when you're a complete secondary like that, when you have speed at all 3 levels, or all 2 levels, I do think they're capable. I don't like no one in a matchup, though, against these Dolphins wide receivers. There's not you couldn't build a secondary out of all pros that I would like one-on-one against these Dolphins wide receivers. That's how good they are. So my next one, unit. Game of the weekend. Maybe. The up-and-coming game of the weekend. Jags versus Eagles. Are you taking – everyone's talking about Tua and Hurts, but I think we debated that one already. Are you taking Jags' defense or Philly's defense right now? Which one?
So, again, this one, like –
Jags allowed 10 points last 2 weeks against the Colts.
I know.
Chargers,
they're playing really well, but, like, Philly's secondary is good.
Yeah.
Like, Darius Slay is like a top-end corner. You got James Bradbury, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Hassan Reddick. Like, that's just and I mean, I know I probably sound like a company man, but, like, you build your defense from the back to front, right? Like, if you have a good secondary any given week, like, you're probably going to be pretty set, right? Like, that's going to benefit you more throughout the season. And then, like, they still get it done up front. Like, I know Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox are, like, older, but I mean, they're still effective players. Jordan Davis is a monster on the inside. Like, I think they just have a more sound defense. And I think, like, for right now, I would go with them. Now, the Jags, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, Jags D is going to be sick.
Yeah, Jags.
They got way more upside. Like, if it's just, like, in a nutshell, like, just general, which defense are you taking? Mm-hmm. I'm taking the Jags because they got more upside. But I'm saying, like, right now, today, I would be riding with Philly. And they're hot. They're playing well. They're the hottest team in the NFL right now.
Even next year, like if the Jags didn't kind of cake their pants in free agency and just had a little bit to add, maybe a nice number 1 type of corner.
They could have a good draft.
They could be.
I mean, like I know they're playing well and like they could fuck around and make the playoffs, but like even if they finish like middle of the pack, you're still getting, potentially a top 15-ish player.
Yeah. I agree. I think the Eagles, if I'm going to break down unit by unit, I'll take the Eagles D-line over the Jags, but that one's close. Jags D-line is tremendous. They're one of the most improved units in the NFL.
And again, younger,
yeah,
higher upside.
Yeah.
Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, their best days are behind them, but they're still getting it effective players.
So, and then linebackers, I'm giving the edge to the Jaguars. Pretty heavy edge there. Devin Lloyd's awesome player. And then secondary, we're going back to the Eagles. So 2 out of 3 units, probably 2 more valuable units. Yeah, we'll go Eagles there. But we got to talk about the Jags defense because that's a big part of the reason they're winning games too. It's not just Trevor Lawrence, not just his emergence. They have been legit on that side of the football. All right, what's your last random one here?
I don't have a random one.
No random one? Okay.
I don't. No, I said it when Austin was on here. Like, these are the hardest ones to come up with.
They are.
And I, too, was unprepared.
Here's my random one.
All right, hit me.
Would you rather be for, let's say, your entire, for a generation of your life, let's say 20 years, you are almost never in playoff contention, not a good team, pretty hapless, but you win a Super Bowl. So, like, say the Browns win a Super Bowl this year. Or I guess say the Bengals won a Super Bowl last year. No, the Bengals have had good years over your lifetime. But, like, let's say the Browns. Browns win a Super Bowl. Would you rather be a fan of that team or a team that's competitive every year, in the mix, but just never got over the hump and won a Super Bowl?
I guess Super Bowl.
You think so?
I don't love that answer. I just like I've lived the other one, and I know like Cincy sports are bad, and everybody like makes fun of them and stuff like that. But like, I mean, the Bengals were like when we were in college, like the Bengals were going to the playoffs every year. They weren't winning.
Mm-hmm.
The Reds, like there was a couple years where they had maybe the best team in the MLB, and like they didn't win a playoff series, but like I saw that and like that was cool. I know what that's like, but that fucking sucks to not get over the hump and win a championship. Like even the Bengals last year, like they were so close. I've never seen a championship from my pro sports teams. I gotta.
Yeah.
This is classic like grass is greener on the other side situation, right? I've never seen that. So I gotta go over to the other side and see what that's all about.
I will say it's awesome. For 7 months in 2011, you could not tell me shit. I wore Packers gear daily in the offseason. Did not matter. It was great. But I will say, like, every loss sucks, though. Every single loss is brutal. I could not imagine, just being a Browns fan, and it would the apathy would set in. And apathy is, like, almost worse than taking each loss hard. Like, not even caring anymore about your team has to suck, too. Like, when you're that bad for that
I don't watch Reds baseball games anymore.
Yeah, see, like
which
that.
Sucks.
Which is not fun. Like, that, you lose your fandom when your team's that bad. So I think I'd have to lean contention every year. I think I'd have to.
I mean, I like I said, it's a sound argument.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting wide-eyed.
Yeah.
But like I do know what you mean. And like the season's long too, so like, you're talking about an off season of, like you said, just like an off season of riding high, but then
versus every year
17 weeks
you're down.
Yeah.
Like every loss sucks. Yep. Every loss sucks.
So I guess even from like a time perspective, right? Like you can be happier for longer if you're just in contention every year.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right. That's it for the Would You Rather. Let's get now to interview with Cris Collinsworth, former Bengals wide receiver, ahead of Thursday Night Football. All right. Joined now by owner of PFF, legend Cris Collinsworth. Thanks so much for joining the show, Cris.
What's happening, man?
How's the season been for you so far? I know it's a grind.
Busy, yeah, it is. It's I don't I don't know if people would understand, sort of what we go through, but and it's not like I'm not friggin' digging ditches or anything, so I don't want to go crazy, but it's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it is for you too, right? You're watching the draft tape, you're watching all the stuff, but it's engaging, it's fun. But for me, it really is. I've had two different jobs. I've been in the studio, which is you need to know something about 32 teams, and then I've done games, which is I know a lot about two teams, and I'm a mile deep into it, and I'm in such minutia. And then somebody asked me something about, the New York Jets, and I'm like, I don't know. I know.
Haven't
I
even
watched
watched.
Monday night a little bit, but that's kind of what you're doing. But you're kind of, I like both, but doing the games is a lot harder than doing the studio stuff.
What's a week like for you, a week in life of Cris Collinsworth during the season, prepping for a game? What is like Monday through Sunday? Walk us through how that goes.
So on Monday, I'm either flying home or I had flown home the night before. But on Monday, I'll watch kind of the TV copies of the next two teams that we're going to do. We come into PFF and our guys give us a little debrief.
Yeah.
So Ben and Seth are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And so they kind of give you that jump start on the week. So they've been looking at this game from the week before. I come in, I'm completely brain dead. Herb Street comes in, he's completely brain dead, and you just kind of listen. But it gets you interested again in the next game. So I do that, and I watch the television tapes, and sometimes I'll watch the little shortcut things more than those games. And then Tuesday, the real sort of grind starts, and I go through the two prior games for these two teams, like in minute detail. I mean, I'm spending a couple of minutes literally on every play, trying to watch every player and, at least have something. I'm taking my own notes because generally then by the time I get back to Sunday, I've forgotten what I watched on Tuesday, so So I do that for one team on Tuesday. I'm all in on one team on Tuesday. I'm all in for the other team on Wednesday. Thursday is generally the interview day. So we'll do all the Bucs interviews this Thursday. Ordinarily that's Friday, but because of the hurricane, we're going to do it on Thursday. But I talk to the general managers, I talk to the coaches, the offensive and defensive coordinators on each team, the general managers on each team, and whoever else wants to get it out of the way. Fly to the game site on Friday. We'll get there, go watch them practice, typically the home team practice, which is always great because you kind of see who's healthy, who's not, who's in, who's out. And then we interviewed that team afterwards. And then Saturday is kind of just this grand, you can't imagine how much crap gets thrown at us by Friday night. So we get the Elias notes, Kenny Hurt does all that stuff. And I don't even know if we do Elias, it's just Kenny Hurt now. All the PFF data comes in that our guys have put together. And so then you just try to, and then you got all these meeting notes. And I literally, over the years, have been able to train myself. Like I did typing class, but I was the worst typist in the entire class. But I can take notes now on my computer. I mean, I can type fast enough to be able to do that. But this year I've made a change. For the first time ever, I quit typing my own notes. I've got somebody else, Andy Freeland, who works with me, that'll type them. And now I'm just sitting back and having a conversation with these guys. And it's fantastic. It's like enjoyable. Or before it was like painful. But Matt Eberflus, who we did the Colts, did the Bears the other day, and I said, I hear that you don't take notes into your meeting room, and he goes, no, he goes, I want to look them right in their eyes. I want them to look me right in my eyes when I'm talking. So I'm like, I'm looking down at my computer going, oh, I close my computer and I look at them, and then we just started talking, and I was thinking, this interview is going way better with not taking notes. So I just started doing it, and it's just been so much more fun and engaging. And so a good lesson learned after 30 years of doing this. I finally figured that out.
I never took notes in college and worked out well for
me. Look at you. You're a genius. You can remember everything. And then, so we do that all day Saturday and just kind of compile it, put it together. And then Sunday morning, I wake up in one final jam session of memorization of the names and numbers, go over all my notes with Andy one more time. And then we off to the stadium about 3:00 for a kickoff game.
Do you get to interview Brady this week?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you know where you're gonna be? Like, do they have any idea of where with the hurricane coming this week?
We don't. Apparently, when you play in London, you have a contractual right to make your stadium available for emergency stuff. So it would either be New Orleans or Minnesota. Yeah. The problem is the Bucs don't want to play in New Orleans because everybody in that division is going to cheer against them,
they hate them.
Right? So now if it gets moved, I think it would be moved to Minnesota. And I think that Tampa is the emergency area is the stadium itself. So, and there was a college game on Saturday. I think they moved the college game. So it's really been a mess. But what people don't think about is our television trucks, they're sitting in Kansas City right now. Yeah. They're stuck. Yeah. So now they have to be told soon, where are we going, right? Because it's about a 3-day setup for them.
Interesting. So what are you going to ask Brady? Have you decided yet, like a guy that big? Do you plan way in advance? Or you just go by shoot from the hip?
No, I used to, but I don't. The last time we were in there was when all the personal stuff was happening with him. He'd taken time off, and we were doing opening day, and he didn't go to Miami, and 11 days off and all that. So we're tippy-toeing around this a little bit, but the guy's lost a lot of weight too.
Yeah. And
I try to just be human sometimes, I like, dude, you all right?
Yeah.
And, he was like, yeah, I definitely lost some weight. I didn't really plan it, but you can't go, all right, full Oprah on him, and go into it, because then you're not getting anything with the football game, But I generally like those guys. They're usually pretty good to us, and we have a decent conversation, and they give us a little insight as to what's going on without crossing some line. And in return, I think we're obligated to protect the football side of what they're saying to us. Like, I think there are announcers who go to practice. I've heard stories of this, who go to practice and then come out in the game and go, oh, look for this, and look, and all of a sudden, well, I don't know, but I've had coaches say to me, like, you're not going to be one of those guys, right? And so I've even heard that on a couple of occasions with different guys that they'll run like fake formations and plays that don't exist that are like bizarre.
Yeah, to try to.
And then they'll get in the same formation and run a different play, So it's
to try to.
There's gamesmanship everywhere within the NFL.
Oh, that's incredible. What's the most contentious pre-game interview that you've had over the years?
Oh, we've had a bunch. It's people be mad about something you say, and Belichick gets mad at us sometimes, and sometimes it's not even our fault. Like we flexed into a game when they were on the West Coast, so he didn't want to be West Coast Sunday night, fly back across the country, So he was like, wouldn't talk to us. I'm like, you think they asked us what we thought about where we're going to flex into? No, but it's your network. Oh, okay. But yeah, no, I've had guys physically bump into me, try and intimidate me. I've had, guys yelling. I've had, I've had everything. I'm honest. I try to consider myself honest now. Uh-huh. I used to be a little crazy. I mean, I was coming out of doing talk radio, and I did not care.
You're ready to let it fly.
I mean, I was trying to feed 4 kids. I was like, and back in the day, it was really much more of, you had to really criticize, or the people, critics just took you apart, and it was like that. I think COVID and everything that's going on, social media has kind of changed the world a little bit. Like, we get enough of the people ripping each other, and I think almost want to escape now. They just like, leave politics out of it, leave all the garbage. Let me just enjoy the game. Give me 3 hours per week without all the stuff, So it's always evolving.
So the elephant in the room this season on Sunday Night Football is obviously no more Al Michaels. What's it been like sitting in your chair or just sitting at home on a Thursday night watching him call a game with someone else? Bittersweet. What are the feelings like when you see him?
What did I tell him? I sent him a text that night. I said, it's like watching my wife on a date on national television. And he sent back something. What did he say back? It was funnier than that. Oh God, I probably can't say it anyway. You always do it anyway. But he's, he's a great friend. They're in town right now with the, the Thursday night game. Yeah. We went to dinner last night. We're going to dinner again tonight. So, he's just a great friend. And my wife, Holly, and Linda Michaels were really good friends. So they really enjoyed going on the road with us. And now Holly's like, you go out, but there's nobody for me to hang out with all day, and it's not as much fun. So,
all right, let's get to some actual football here. You're obviously former wide receiver. What wide receiver in the league right now would you say is the most similar skill set to yourself?
Oh, jeez. That's a really good question. God, I almost have to start thinking about the guys around the NFL right now. Let me just take a look at the teams, and I'll come up with something. I'm probably more like a tight end now, with the way. But I really wish I had a chance.
Like a Dan Arnold.
Yeah, Dan Arnold. I really wish I had a chance to play the game the way that these guys are playing it now.
That was my follow-up. Like, how different is the position being played compared to what it was like back then, and not just gloves, not just things like that, but actual schematically, how different? What's the biggest difference, would you say?
Yeah, I was trying to think. Cortland Sutton in the game we just did is probably a little bit, because I was the X receiver, I was the deep guy. I've made jokes about not being able to run, but I was pretty fast. I won the 100-yard dash in Florida, so I was pretty fast. But probably the 2 biggest things I think are the gloves, for sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I never in my entire career saw somebody make an overhand catch below the waist, and now you see it every day. I mean, it was literally impossible. The second biggest thing was the balls used to have to come right out of the box. Mm-hmm. They were slippery as hell. I'm just telling you, it's like, this is the dumbest thing. They want us to go score a bunch of points, and so now they can rub down the balls and they can do all that stuff. Probably the third thing is all the wide receiver quick passes. Just throw it out there. So the catches now, people are getting 140 catches. I used to go to the Pro Bowl with 60 something, but we averaged 16 yards a catch, and they're averaging 9 or whatever now. And then the deep ball was, nobody would throw you a deep ball unless you were a yard behind everybody. Well, now that doesn't even apply. I mean, they just throw it up and give those guys a chance to out-jump them, or they do the back shoulder. I think the back shoulder is probably, if I could wish for one thing,
is that
I can't believe we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Like, just intentionally, because it's the greatest thing off of the deep ball to have that guy have to play you almost behind you to keep that back shoulder from getting in there. So yeah, those are kind of the biggies.
I feel like an underrated. Correct me if I'm wrong. Or this is a take that I've had for a while that no one really talks about. But I feel like the shoulder pad evolution has helped the passing game as well. Like, shoulder pads used to be egregiously large comparatively to what they are today, and like I feel like that limited mobility of passers, wide receivers, just like the passing game in general, that no one really talks about.
Well, I mean, plus there was, you had a choice of one helmet. I mean, they just handed you a helmet. They gave you a choice of one shoulder pads.
Yeah.
These guys give away more stuff on a weekly basis than we used to get sometimes, to get ready for the game. But I think it was just a different game. It was a different game. I'll say one thing. I think the wide receivers block better today than we blocked. I mean, the Rams and that whole idea.
Yeah, were you ever down, reduced split, getting asked to block a linebacker?
The first preseason game I ever played, remember a guy named Hugh Green? He was like a top
Eagles?
Like a top 2 or 3 draft pick in like 81. Go back and look up this monster. He's out of Pitt.
I'll take someone else.
And so we went through the draft process together, but he was like the second or third pick. And so they put me in a tight formation, like on like a tight end down on the line of scrimmage. And I just had to like get in his way. This dude, like, so because literally I line up there and he goes, "Chris," he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "I have no idea, dude." And I come out and try and block him, and he like picked me up and like body slam me face first down into the ground. And then he like picked me up. And I'm like, "Did you have to do that?" I go, "I'm still worried about making the team." But he didn't put me down there anymore.
Oh man. So, all right, let's get some quarterbacks though, because there's kind of like a revolution or like an evolution at the position going on. A lot of names right now that have been like the hottest names in the NFL that probably weren't what we expected. So I want your take. Are you buying or selling the hot starts from these guys? First off, Tua Tagovailoa, the guy who will be here on Thursday night.
I think there's 2 ways to play this game now. You can, the hardest thing is to find somebody who knows how to separate. I mean, Travis Kelce, I think, is going to play a long time because he knows how to separate. Cooper Kupp, he's not a speedster. He knows how to separate and get open. But when you get guys like Tyreek and Waddle and those guys that know how to run 4-3 and know how to separate. I always thought that was Tyreek's biggest gift, was that he can get away from people too. He's built like a running back and he could break tackles and he could do things. But yeah, that whole generation of speed and separation. And when I watch these guys now, we were just cavemen. I mean, I ran a dig route the same exact way. I ran an out route the same exact way. So I'm sure every defender had a total take on if he goes inside and then does this little, we used to do this deep over, it was, 12 yards, 5 yards. And like I could have told him And so I think that the creativity at the receiver position and the ability to get separation without speed is something that's smarter today than what it was when we played too.
Mm-hmm. So I honestly think with Tua, it's not going to matter. Like, he may not be an elite quarterback, but with those two, it's not going to matter.
Thanks for finishing the sentence. I forgot the question. I just
basically
rambling off on
Tua,
some tangent.
It's not going to be like, we might not know. Although I do think like the poise and what, like, he's not throwing to the other team nearly as much as he was previously. So that's always a good start. What about Jalen Hurts? Buying or selling the hot start from Jalen Hurts?
I don't think I was buying at the beginning of the year. I just couldn't get the Tampa playoff game out of my head. It was bad. And I just kept thinking, is there ever going to be a day that Jalen Hurts is going to be able to go up against Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford, any of these guys, and everything's on the line, and he's just got to come back from 10 points down and da-da-da. But they did the same thing Miami did. I mean, this is really the year of the receiver, right? Mm-hmm. With Smith and with A.J. Brown, and they've shown that, man, you get them some guys that can go up and get it.
Might not
and if I remember correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but if I remember him coming out of college, wasn't he like our number 1 or 2 most accurate quarterback and coming out of college?
Yeah, back at Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah, but not necessarily at Alabama.
No,
But the guy, when I watched him at Alabama, I was thinking, this guy can't throw at all. Now, he was a power lifter, he's a good runner, and all those sorts of things. But I didn't think he could throw it at all. And now, I got to say, he looks pretty good. And those receivers they look great to me. Goddard, all those guys.
Yeah. All right, last one. Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott?
Oh, I'm not ready to go there yet.
Have you seen like the conversations around that people are saying, they play harder for Cooper Rush more talented. Cooper, like the takes that have been flying around the Cowboys right now?
Oh, you know what's interesting, and I won't say who told me all this stuff, but apparently they've been trying to replace Cooper Rush every single year. Every year. And the coaches push back on it because, I mean, they look at him and they go, he's not talented enough to be the Dallas Cowboys backup quarterback. And the coaches are like, maybe not, but every time we put this guy in the game, whether it's preseason or regular season in Minnesota, we did that game last year, he's winning. Yeah. So he's 3-0 now and as a starter in the NFL or whatever. And I'm like, I'm kind of a trust my eyes sort of guy. It's like, what are the results? I want to see the talent, but from doing the draft all those years, it's like there's a whole bunch of guys that that can really run, that are really quick, that don't play football worth a darn. And there's a whole bunch of guys that don't run really quickly and don't know how to do things. But Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown last year. Yeah. So, and I think that's the wonderful gray area. Like there are people who come off of Wall Street and think they can build an algorithm that's going to make better draft picks. I'm like, dude, you better have made a whole bunch of stupid ones in your lifetime. I mean, I can't tell you how many of them I've done where I go, you're talking about pound the table. I knew that guy was going to be great. Can't play worth a darn.
Yeah. So it makes draft great. I mean, it is just such an inexact science that two guys can have the same profile, exact same whatever. One succeeds in the NFL, one doesn't. I mean, just look at Jalen Hurts compared to Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. Outplaying both of them right now when, Hurts was good at Oklahoma. He wasn't near what those guys were. Those guys were Heisman winners. And Jalen Hurts goes to the NFL now, and all of a sudden he's outplaying both those guys. So
how about Rashawn Gary? I mean, I went from, they drafted him? What? Even though he had the unbelievable numbers, but he just never seemed to make a play. And now they kicked him out to the edge instead of the 4 technique or whatever the hell he was playing there in Michigan. And, just kept hammering. He kept getting better. And now the raw talent. We're seeing that with the quarterbacks a little bit more too, with we got all the Justin and
Zach and
those guys are, some of the big 6'5" guys that weren't that accurate. Josh Allen coming out of college and that all of a sudden they learned how to play. And then there's a lot of that in the NFL too, that people go, look, there's only a few great coaches out there. Give us the talent, and we'll coach them into being great players, and that happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, Cris, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. I know we will be doing as well.
That's it, man. That's you're done. That's good. This is fun.
Yeah.